DrewMan89 over on Twitter wants to know, what if The Undertaker had defected to WCW? He said he was growing frustrated with creative back then. I think everybody was. I mean, I think we kind of got to see what that might look like in '02 when he did the whole American Badass thing. Because it's not like he could bring the name The Undertaker over.
No. Or anything or anything confusingly similar.
Yeah, but he could have done the American Badass thing. I mean, he could have ridden a motorcycle down. He's all right. I'm on a Harley. I got the bandana. I got leather and denim and all that stuff.
He's trying to be me, like the Undertaker was trying to be me. Wow. No, Mark was. He saw me. Come out with the leather jacket and the NWO. Wow. He saw me on my Harley, and he just like stole my gimmick. Taker, I get it. You got whatever well you need to go to come out with the water you need at any moment in time. It's fine with me, man. It's cool. You're welcome, by the way.
He would have had a blast at Hog Wild. I mean, we know that for sure.
I've never had any heat with Undertaker, but probably I'm going to have some now. That's awesome.
I don't think you have any now. I mean, first of all, he copied your style on the motorcycle. That's been well established. And he's copying the jean jacket. That's well established. And now he's even got a podcast. I mean, if he starts,
we're going to stop. Is it ever going to stop?
It's going to stop when you get damn tombstoned when you see him at WrestleMania. Hey, this is a fun idea to think about, though. The idea of the Undertaker in WCW. I don't think the American Badass thing, as much as I preferred it to the Deadman gimmick, I know I'm in the minority. I know that the Undertaker being the phenom and the music and the mood lighting, and I mean, it was all such a fantastic presentation. It guaranteed success and a lifelong following, and he pulled it off brilliantly. I mean, he is the Undertaker. It's hard to imagine anybody else making the undead zombie character known as the Undertaker work for a year, much less multiple decades. But the American Badass, would that have really hit in WCW? Do you think that could have been different enough to be a huge success for WCW?
Yeah. I mean, that was, again, timing. That's what I was thinking about, the timing. That character could have worked because it was the reality that we were really striving for in many, if not all, but a lot of our characters and stories were intentionally designed to appeal to an older male demo. And I think that American Badass character definitely would have played into the target audience we had at the time. Particularly because it was a fresh idea. It was relevant at that time. I mean, Kid Rock had an album out called American Badass, I think. There was that point in time where it's almost like where hip hop and rap and rock kind of converged more so than it had previously. More and more of that type of music, that Kid Rock style of music that kind of merges hip hop and rock, was becoming more prevalent, I think. Movies characters were leaning in that direction as well. So I think the timing would have dictated the success, but I think it would have really worked in WCW because of where we were going.
Let's do another one here. Chris, the nice guy who finishes last green, wants to know, what if he kept Steve Austin? Now that's interesting to think about because we know he's ultimately going to be the star that tips the scales in the WWE's favor. If he had hung around through the NWO, do you think that he is a part of WCW and that makes him a babyface? Is he going to do the NWO thing? Is there an opportunity for him to do his, for lack of a better word, Austin shtick on Nitro? Could he have done middle fingers and beers and all that? Does that success exist in WCW, or did it have to be WWE for it to happen?
Wow. Who asked that question?
Chris, the nice guy who finishes last green.
Man, that's a really good question, Chris. Thank you for that. A couple of different answers because there was a lot packed into that question. What if I was able to hold on to Steve Austin and he never made the transition to WWE? That means there would have been no McMahon, Austin, Tyson moment, which I think was the pivotal moment in WWE's trajectory and turning their business around. That one storyline, that angle, the creation of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mr. McMahon, the storyline that it followed, and everything that came about as a result of that story, I think was the seismic shift in the beginning of it for WWE and turning the fortune around. He said, what if Steve never went to WWE? That means there's no Mr. McMahon character. Not likely. Perhaps, but wouldn't have got us over quite as well, right? There would have been no Stone Cold Steve Austin in WWE. I think from a brand positioning point of view, as a defensive maneuver, had I had the foresight, crystal ball, to hold on to Steve just to keep him away from WWE, I think the answer is pretty obvious. I wouldn't have had nearly the competition that I ended up having as a result of Steve Austin becoming Stone Cold Steve Austin in WWE. Now, do I think that his character could have gotten over in WCW? Absolutely. Do I see him in the NWO or fighting against the NWO? Absolutely fighting against. Again, now you're looking at Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Bret Hart. From a traditional wrestling perspective at that time, these guys, I hate when I say that, these individuals, Bret, Rick, Austin, properly presented would represent the old school version of professional wrestling. They would have appealed to the older side of the 18 to 49-year-old demo. And then you would have shored that audience up with the Halls, the Nash, this X-Pac, the Conans, Hogan, obviously. That's the cooler, younger, kind of aspirational portion of your audience, as opposed to the older side, which are kind of like nostalgic almost. That's a perfect combination, and I think it would have worked out great. Now, the one issue he would have had, I think we could have gotten away with beer. Pretty sure of that. But flipping people off, that would have not flown at Turner and Brosnan. I would have had an issue with that one. You could argue that I may have won, but I would have had to have many conversations about that.
Obviously, Jake Roberts wouldn't have been there, so he wouldn't have cut the promo. But do you think standards and practices would have allowed Austin 316?
Oh, I think so. My gut says probably. Don't know for sure, obviously, but I think here's what would have happened. We would have done it. They wouldn't have noticed it. They wouldn't have thought about it until they got a couple phone calls from somebody who was complaining about it. And then it would work its way through the process, end up in HR. I would have gotten an email or a phone call, and they would have addressed the situation with me. And then going forward, I would have had to have been more careful about that type of thing. So it's one of those, I would have asked for forgiveness before I asked for permission issues, but no heads were going to roll because of it.
How big of an issue did they have with you guys saying damn, ass, or hell?
That wasn't an issue. Now, it became one towards the end for me. I think when Terry Tingle got inserted as standards and practices, and her new, job description included sanitizing WCW. That was her job. What a horrible job that would have been. But I think she was a little, she was new. She didn't know what she was dealing with. This professional wrestling thing was so far outside of her wheelhouse. She probably never spent 2 minutes watching it. And now she's in charge of trying to harness this animal that lives on the edge of saying inappropriate things, because that's kind of the essence of what we do. We say things that people get angry about, and then we fight. More often than not, we cheat while we're fighting, and we use garbage cans and sinks and pipes and shovels and all kinds of accoutrement. So, yeah, it's a little silly business anyway. And for somebody that knows nothing about it to come in and try to control it, she was in over her head. And I think she overcompensated in the beginning. So I think towards the end, when she was really trying to prove that she should have that job, it got a little crazy.
It's so fascinating to me to think about these what ifs, because the idea of Stone Cold drinking beer on Nitro and stunning the whole NWO, that's pretty exciting. I could get behind it. I could see it.
Could have been magic. God, if I just would have known, if I just would have had the foresight to know that Steve Williams, the Hollywood Blonde, was going to go on to become Stone Cold Steve Austin and actually turn the entire WWE around and put it on a profitable path. Had I had the foresight to know that, I could have just kept him under contract. None of that would have happened. Oh, well.